Hello, everyone. Namaste. Welcoming you all to day 4 of our the final day of our Guiding Nature workshop, hosted by Chinmaya Mission, Niagara, Cleveland, in collaboration with United Consciousness. This workshop is led by Sri Vivek Gupta, who's our spiritual guide, and we are also hearing from various environmental experts. For many of you who have been following our daily sharing of key takeaways from this workshop on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter would have seen that Vivekji has quite a strong online presence. His dynamic talks reach audiences through various platforms. Live Vedanta, which is his very popular podcast, has over 150 episodes and has reached seekers in over 117 countries with over 100,000 downloads. So quite a popular podcast. Similarly, he also has a number of talks on the Chinmaya Mission Niagara YouTube channel, which has over 90,000 views. Vivekji is also the author for 2 books. The more recent one is the Seeker's Word Book, which is basically an introduction to concepts of meaningful living. And the other one, which is definitely my favorite, is the Reflection Adventure of the Week journal. And that basically is a great tool for self-transformation. So a great book to check out for sure. Then there are his daily meaningful morning sessions, which are both on Instagram and Facebook, and they explore timeless insights from the Bhagavad Gita in 15-minute doses. And we have people from around the world tuning into that on a regular basis, because who doesn't have 15 minutes to start their day right? So without further ado, I would like to welcome Vivekji. Hari Om, Vivekji.
Thank you. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. I'm going to start by telling you a story. Some of you may have heard this story, some of you may have not. Those who have heard this, act like you haven't heard this, okay? So one day, a king was looking out at his kingdom and he saw his reflection in a pane of glass, and he saw some white hair in his sideburn. In the Ramayana, when you see white hair in the sides of your head, that's known as Yamaduta. That's the messenger of death that is messaging you. So for a lot of us, we're getting text messages, we're getting phone calls, we're getting emails. And when he saw his reflection, then he realized he was getting older and that he couldn't be the king forever. So he thought that he has to give up his leadership to his children, and he had 2 identical daughters. And I know identical twins. One is marginally older. It's a story, okay? So he calls both of his daughters to his courtroom and shares, I'm giving you each 1,000 gold coins, and you have to fill up your living spaces, your palaces, as much as possible, and whoever does more will become the queen of this land. And one of the daughters, when she was given this bag of gold coins, she ran as fast as she could to the marketplace. And when she was there, she was looking around, and what did she see the most of? Garbage. When you go to a mall, there's lots of stuff, but Every restaurant, every store has garbage. So she started to collect that garbage in baskets and pillowcases and bringing it to her palace and just throwing it into her palace, in the rooms, in the kitchen, and so on. Now, the people in that marketplace were watching their princess, and they were very astute. So they decided to start selling this garbage to her. Her father, and had shared, and I'm going to pause here. You can all hear me and see me. Okay. Please let me know in the chat otherwise. That I've used all my gold coins and my palace is full. And so he had come over there and it was so dirty and stinky, but quite full. Now the other daughter, when she got her bag of gold coins, she quietly walked to her room, sat down and closed her eyes. And after some time, she also went to the marketplace and she started to buy candles. And with those 1,000 gold coins, she bought as many candles as possible and filled them up in her palace, then called her father and he came and he was happy. It wasn't dirty or stinky, but it was quite empty. And so the other daughter was really happy because she was going to be the queen. But then her sister stopped and said, I didn't fill my palace up with candles. And she started to light up all of those candles. I filled up my palace with light. And light goes everywhere, to the corners and so on, unlike garbage. And that father was very happy. He knew that this child will look after the land in a caring way. Now, I don't think I have to explain the moral of the story, but if I do, you can produce more garbage or you can produce more light. We all have the same resources, the same opportunity, but what are you doing with this? Our Veda teaches Vasudeva Kutumbaka, which means earth, all, one, or earth, all, family. And within the Veda, there is a powerful mantra to help remind us of the same. We're going to chant this mantra together now. I'll explain this in English, and then we'll chant in Sanskrit. The mantra is Om Lam Prithivye Namaha. Om means infinity. Lam, and I was asking some kids what this sounds like, and they rightly got it. It sounds like love, doesn't it? Prithivya means to the earth. So my love to the earth. And Namaha means not to me. For one who is practicing infinity, which really means practicing love, it is offering one's love to the earth and not to oneself. Is that a simple enough translation? Okay. Everyone relax your bodies, enjoy breathing, and quieten your mind and chant with me. Though you're muted, don't try to unmute yourself. Om Lam Prithivye Namaha. 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 Om. I love you, my Mother Earth. After chanting this mantra, how do you feel right now? Please share in the chat. What is in your head? What is in your heart? Calmness, upliftment. And these are just words. Just visualize if these words percolate to our action, how we will feel, how our earth will feel. This is the vision of our workshop, that we have a guiding nature. Our nature is guiding us to our nature, which is one of calmness and peace, one of Vasudeva Kutumbaka, which is oneness. To ensure that this is not just poetic, we are utilizing this guidance through Srimad Bhagavata. I've explained what Bhagavata means in different ways. For those who are just joining us, welcome. We hope that you're smiling right now, those who are on YouTube. Those who are on Zoom, we can only tell if your cameras are on. And if you did miss the explanation of Bhagavata, all of this has been recorded, is on our United Consciousness YouTube channel. Within Bhagavata, a group of seekers asks their guide, when Sri Krishna is no longer with the people, when he's no longer on earth, what happens to Dharma? And this guide shares with the seekers that when Sri Krishna was around, that he facilitated Dharma. When he was not around, he entered into Bhagavata. And so Bhagavata facilitates Dharma. Now, an English word for Dharma is responsibility. That's as a noun. What Dharma means as a verb is that which integrates. When we follow our responsibilities, we feel more integrated, or we feel more of a oneness. Every one of us has a responsibility towards our earth, the way our earth has been following her responsibility towards us. This integration again is an expression of Vasudeva Kutumbaka, of oneness. Our recent guides for the Avaduta, Rishi Dattatreya, the Brahmana, us, the eighth guide is a patanga, in English, a moth. And what we learn from a moth is to appreciate. Appreciate all. Further on in Bhagavata, a question is posed to Sri Krishna. What does it mean to be daridra, or impoverished? And he responds by sharing, when you focus on what you don't have, that's what it means to be impoverished. So appreciate. Number 9 is the madhukrit, in English, honeybee. And what we can practice from this is to learn. Learn from every experience. Learn from every person. For all of you who interact with high school students, with our youth, what is a word that they use that is very annoying. This is a clean word, okay? Keep your curse words in your own mind. In the chat, like, I know, yes. I'm bored. Yes, I'm bored. If someone is learning from every experience, that means they're the most interested, which means they're the most interesting, correct? The most bored people are the most boring people. So if people tell you you're boring, be the honeybee. Learn. Number 10, gaja, in English, elephant. And our practice, how nature is guiding us, is to move. To move. I was elaborating on how the more relationships you have, the more conflict you experience. When you drive in Idaho, people don't live in Idaho. So there's no conflict with cars. If you live in New York City, lots of people live there. So there's a lot of conflict with the cars, correct? There's going to be conflict. And so moving means, the Sanskrit term is gata vyata, which means to be unbothered. There will be conflict. To not be bothered by that, keep moving. Number 11, harina. Harina means a deer. And what we can practice learning from a deer is to inquire, to think about the fundamentals of life. And a great reminder of this is your birthday. In fact, in our culture, we have 4 birthdays. It's almost like each birthday comes in each quarter. And each of these birthdays is an opportunity to inquire, am I happier? Have I become more integrated, practicing more oneness? We continue. Our 12th guide. In total, there are 24, but the ones that are just from nature are 16. The 12th is Meena. Meena means fish. Meenakshi means the one who has fish-like eyes, or one who has beautiful eyes. A fish, how many of you have been fishing before, by a show of hands? Okay, I haven't. I just show you how to put your hand up. So anyways, when you go fishing, I'm only sharing theoretically, that you have this pole and you have this worm, and this worm is on a hook, and that fish sees the worm. That fish, if it sees the worm, sees the hook too, but still goes and tries to consume that worm, and in doing so, gets pierced and caught on that hook. And so a fish is an icon in this example as one who is indulgent. One who is indulgent. And what we can do not to succumb to indulgence is to exercise. To exercise. How does one practice exercise in terms of loving thyself? Whenever you feel like eating more chocolate. When I finish at 10 p.m., even though you've looked at a screen for so long, but now you feel like it's time for Disney Plus. Whenever you feel indulgent, walk. Walk. Because you want to do something, but instead of consuming something, go for a walk. That nervous energy will be released in a non-indulgent way, in a very productive way. How does one practice exercise in reference to thy neighbor? So often when we have gatherings, when we have parties, what do? We eat more, we talk more, and so on. What I'm suggesting to everyone is to organize games, particularly athletics. I'm not saying sports, I'm saying athletics. To organize a soccer game, organize a race, organize tug of war, but don't make it competitive. Just make it physical. Then, and just think about this, when you exercise well, you're more careful about what you eat, correct? Because you put in all of that effort. So organize games, athletics. In all of our retreats, we play soccer, correct? And after that, nobody's hungry because everyone, when one's heart is full, one's stomach is full. In reference to loving thy mother, it is to practice being okay with discomfort. To be okay with discomfort. We harm our earth a lot to be more comfortable. Hotter water, colder water, etc. I don't have to elaborate. And that comfort is really another form of indulgence. But if you're okay with discomfort, if you choose discomfort, that is a great way to love thy mother. I was just telling a host of mine that when I stay at someone's home just for a day, though they give me a room and they give me a very great bed, I sleep on the floor. I just take a pillow and sleep on the floor because if I sleep on the bed, just for 5 hours, they have to do all of that laundry. So just get a pillow and keep your socks on and your sweater on and go to sleep. So choose discomfort. We continue with more guides. These are the final 4. Number 13 is a kurura. Kurura. In English, this is a osprey. An osprey. The one who is full inside, living in the jungle, is looking around at the jungle, looking at nature, and sees that this osprey has a small piece of meat, of flesh, and is flying away to consume this, but everyone is watching everyone. So many bigger birds, like the hawks and the eagles, they start to peck at this osprey. And they keep pecking at this osprey until finally this osprey lets go of that flesh, of that meat. Then what do the hawks and eagles do? Leave that osprey alone. In terms of rap, I think this is called mo money, mo problems. It's been learned from this kurura. What we can practice from this, and this is a great value to invest in, is simplify. Our 13th practice, our 13th verb is to simplify. How we can do this with ourselves is to declutter. When there's a lot of clutter, then our thoughts go to that clutter. But if you declutter, there's less to think about, correct? Declutter. Now, people pay so much just to learn how to declutter. Study Bhagavata, practice Vasudeva Kutumbaka. You'll save money also. This workshop is free. In terms of loving thy neighbor, how one can practice to simplify is to invest, to focus on important relationships only. We meet 100 people a day. If you gave your time to 100 people, you'd have no good time to give anyone. Simplify your relationships to the ones that are more meaningful. And in terms of loving thy mother, buy natural. Whatever you buy, try to make sure it's more natural. Try to make sure it's more local. If it's local, there's less transportation involved, correct? If it's natural, there's less pesticides involved. Buy natural. The 14th guide, I think this is my favorite. I don't truly know, but I'm really fascinated by this. It is sarpa. Sarpa means snake. Earlier was Ajagara. Remember that bulky being that is a python? This is when all of you had your finger up. That's the sarpa, the skinny snake. And what this person who's full inside observes is that a snake doesn't build its own home. It's always exploring, and sometimes it lives in a gopher hole, and sometimes a mouse hole, and sometimes a tree. When I was living in India, when I was living in an ashram, we had cobras in the ashram. And I would see them come from a hole in the grass and go into a hole in the wall. And I was extremely grateful that I lived on the 3rd floor. I didn't want those holes to be on the 1st floor. So for us, what we can distill this to is to utilize. The way a snake utilizes really other creatures' homes for us to utilize in a general and specific way. In terms of loving thyself, it is to utilize your time. There are many powerful quotes about those who waste time are really wasting their life. Utilize your time. Money comes and goes. Time comes. Money comes and goes and can come again. Time comes and goes, but will never come again. In terms of loving thy neighbor, it is to facilitate opportunities where others can realize their potential. If you utilize your time, you're realizing your potential, correct? Some people need help with that, so create a field for them to realize their potential. Right before this workshop commenced, many of us had joined for really an appreciation gathering. And I was sharing with everyone how this opportunity to serve, whether through Zoom or YouTube or taking notes, presenting on the environment, whatever it may be, really brings out the best in us. We are showing our love for each other. And in terms of loving thy mother, whatever you own, use this fully. I have a pen here right now, and I will not throw it out till there's no ink in there. I have a pencil here, and I don't know if you can see, these pencils get pretty grimy when you keep using them, and even when you use them, then it smudges the paper. But my only other choice is to take more plastic from the earth. So I'd rather have smudged paper rather than to buy another pencil. And I'm only giving examples of what you already do. Just keep expanding this then. I would like to shave my head, but my wife told me not to. If you shave your head, you don't use as much water then, correct? Some of you are born like that. Some of you have evolved to that. Number 15, Urnanabhi. Urnanabhi, which means the one from whose navel string comes, thread comes. In English, a spider. And what this enlightened being, the one who's living by Vasudeva Kutumbaka, observes is that this thread, this web, comes from a spider, and the spider uses it to live in, to eat in. And eventually that spider just leaves it. It doesn't write its name like Charlotte's Web. This is my web, and it has to live there forever. It just leaves it. And so we can distill this to release. The way that spider releases that web or releases itself from that web, for us to do so also. How we can practice this is quite deep. In terms of loving thyself, it is to do your best. When you do your best, you release so many mind games. What really hurts us is regrets of the past, anxiety of the future. But if you're doing your best, you don't have regrets then, correct? You have less anxiety. In terms of loving thy neighbor, and this is connected, if you're doing your best, you're in this self-reward system. So with others, you have less expectations. You have less expectations. Like all of us who are gathered for this workshop, specifically those who are organizing, we're trying our best to make the inaccessible accessible. So now who benefits from this is not important. Of course, all of you are important, but the quantity is not. We're doing our best. So you'll know you're loving yourself if you have less expectations of others. And in terms of loving thy mother, release means change your gift-giving habits from the material to the immaterial. We're very stuck on giving stuff, correct? Even when we organize retreats and camps, let's give bags, let's give bottles, let's give t-shirts. I have a store of t-shirts. You come, I'll sell them to you. So now when I'm part of organizing teams, I tell them we don't have to give people more stuff. Like, as an example, with Chinmay Mission Cleveland, who's one of the organizing bodies, our prasad, that means our end of the year offering to all of our students, is a tree. We're giving each one a tree, and we're going to ask them to assign a value they feel they need in their life, to plant that, to nurture that. Technically, that's material, but you see how it's immaterial. It's better for the earth. So to give immaterial gifts, and that's why our community, since March of 2020, has been comprehensively giving each other the opportunity to donate resources. We have donated almost $600,000 to various humanitarian efforts, like women's shelters, to air quality, water quality. Now, if you had, suppose you've given 5,000 towards this 600,000, what would you be doing with that? Probably buying more materials, correct? See how cool this opportunity is. And finally, our 16th guide is the Supesha Krit. Anyone want to guess what a Supesha Krit is? A Supesha Krit, see, there's various definitions actually. One definition is a wasp, but for some of us who have studied Bhagavata in more detail, it's really just an insect, an undeveloped insect. I think it's called the larvae, something like that. So this wasp captures this kita, this baby insect, and puts it into this small hole and covers it with mud and keeps this opening there for this baby insect to eat. And what is this insect doing? It's constantly seeing that wasp buzz and act and so on. And eventually this baby insect grows and starts to behave like a wasp. Because as you see, so you think, so you behave. And so for us, our distilled practice is model. Have the right role models in life. Starting with loving thyself, it is to be conscious about your sangha, that is who you associate with. We typically describe this as satsanga. In terms of loving thy neighbor, it is to realize that everyone is watching you. And I don't mean this in a creepy way. I mean the people you're living with, the people you're serving with, the people you're working with, they're watching you, correct? So if you would like for one of their behaviors to change, are you exhibiting that behavior? If I love my children, then I should be a polite person because they're watching me. I want them to be polite. And finally, in terms of loving thy mother, how many of you have an altar? You have a puja area? Almost everyone. at your altar to have an icon of the earth. It could be a picture, it could be a carving, it could be something you've made up yourself. That way, the more you see our earth, the more you will model living like her. We have a guiding nature. Nature is guiding us to be virtuous. When one becomes more virtuous, one feels more oneness. Vasudeva Kutumbaka means earth, alone, family. Let us not just make this a phrase we put on the wall or a t-shirt, but for us to live this. Those are some philosophical insights. And now the more important part of our workshop is the professional insight. Our final scientist that will be sharing on water quality and what we can do by Dhruv Raina. Who is he? First of all, he is a friend and he is a seeker. And I'm also supposed to say, Dhruv, along with his wife Ketki and his children Suraj and Radha, are part of the Chinmaya Parivar. Dhruv is a Prithvi Mitra, a friend of the earth, is a firm believer in living a net positive life as a path to striving, to thriving. He is an environmental engineer by training. At Accenture, he helps businesses accelerate their sustainability journey and stay true to their commitments by advocating for appropriate policy. Dhruv has also contributed valuable and practical insights to our Prithvi Seva Sangha community, for which we are appreciative. Dhruv, please share away.
Thank you, Vivekji. Hari Om, everyone, and gratitude to the team for giving me this opportunity. Just want to quickly check. You can see the presentation mode. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to talk a little bit about or share with you the role of water in nature as I know it, and in the 15 minutes or 10 minutes that I have. So what the picture you see behind is, where I grew up in Navi Mumbai. So in the rains, the hills come to life. You have all kinds of waterfalls and the hills become green from a barren, rocky, terrain. That's the powerful nature of water in itself, right? It transforms the land we all live and are part of. And it just creates these ecosystems that are already there, but we may not be aware of. I also read in some place that, just being close to a waterfall, it releases negative ions, which stimulates, amongst many other things, serotonin in our brains. I have not fact-checked that, but you know it, right? You've been to Niagara Falls, like you feel so much at peace just staring at the water falling, right? Or any water body, Lake Erie in Cleveland or anywhere that you might be. So nature in itself is a healer, but water in itself is one of the most powerful elements that we have at our disposal, right? So it's essential. Water is really essential for all living beings, right? So from any living being, whether it's a bacteria to the most biggest mammal on the planet, everybody needs water, even if they live in desert. So not just beings, but even ecosystems, right? We may see desert and think that there's no water there. So, somebody's surviving without water. But there's wildlife and plants that conserve water, that have ways to get water in a way that is natural to their habitat, right? So the essence of what I'm trying to say is that every living being essentially lives on water. They need water for survival. And before we go into our relationship with water as we know it, what is the water cycle? What does it look like, right, from a scientific perspective? Something just changed on my end. Rita ji, everything okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes, now we're in presentation mode. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So if you look at the mountains where we have, the snow-capped mountains, the water eventually melts and makes its way down the valley. It infiltrates right into the ground, under the ground. It also stays above the ground in terms of, or in the form of lakes and rivers. Some of the plants and life, uptake water from the lakes and rivers. Some of the water we also get, in the form of precipitation, right? So this is the whole water cycle, and some of the water then goes back into the space or the clouds in the form of evaporation. So this cycle just keeps going on and on. And something to think about here in this scientific cycle is our role, right? What are we doing in this nature to either enhance it or to pollute it, right? And in my instance, I'm a trained environmental engineer. I've seen a lot of pollution happening that is not visible to our eyes, right? In the name of growth, whether we drill wells to frack gas. I live in Western Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of shale gas fracking happening over here. And for years, I have been an advocate for we need to stop drilling. And the feedback I get is that, oh, we are drilling these wells, they are protected by 3 layers or whatever, and nothing's going to happen, right? We all know in Pennsylvania itself, people have tap water and tap water catching fire, right? So essentially, water will find a way to leak, right, wherever it finds the fracture. So we cannot create systems with chemicals, with fossil fuels, and say that, oh yeah, water is protected, we are safe. We are not. We are polluting in a way. We are just not seeing it. So when we found water, we are very smart beings, so we put water to work right away, right? We created aqueducts, we used it for agriculture, and we have to, right? We have to make productive use of what nature gives us in a responsible manner. We also created, vast dams to stop the flow of water or to catch water, to create electricity out of it, right? Niagara Falls, Tatas in India were one of the first in the 18th century to take that idea and create what is today in Mumbai, uninterrupted supply of electricity is because of that dam that was built in the late 1800s. So obviously we need to harvest, the powerful nature of water and what nature provides us. But on the other hand, we've also created, industries that create more pollution than creating a thriving environment for all of us. A good example of polluting water is on the left, you see it's the Deepwater Horizon, the rig that essentially had blown up, if you've seen the movie or if you are old enough, in 2010. And that's the actual oil spill that you see in the Gulf of Mexico. And then on the right-hand side, you see, you can Google water contamination, but I just Googled PFAS. PFAS is a chemical that is on anything that is known as waterproof, right? So we all love our couches to be, coated with waterproof fabrics. Our kids don't dirty it. Our carpets to be waterproof. Our jackets, our shoes, you name it. Even our food packaging, the burger you eat, whether it's vegan or not, it's lined with this waterproof PFAS chemical. That's why nothing leaks out of it. And all of that chemical is carcinogenic. It's known as a forever chemical for a reason, because it does not degrade. It goes in our bodies, it keeps accumulating, and for the ones from us that might be vulnerable, it eventually comes out in a form of cancer or some other reproductive harm or toxicity that is deterrent to human health. That's just one chemical that is in water, that's in our bodies from water, right? And we have polluted that. So that's one aspect. The other is outside of water. If we pollute water, we also pollute the environment. I mean, there's so many examples here. 30 miles from my home, New Palestine in Ohio, we just had a tanker blow up with vinyl chloride, which leaked into the waterways, also into the air. We had like 30 miles from Ohio in Pennsylvania, we had a haze around where we live, and we couldn't go out for 48 hours. It was air pollution, it was water pollution, and the soil there is contaminated. So think about the communities. I live in a very, very upscale community. So I have like all the safeguards, air filter and all of that in my homes. But where this happened, those communities don't have access to even drinking water, even today, right on their tap. So the extent of this pollution is not just limited to our waterways. It can go into air and soil and just stay there forever, and then eventually make its way into our bodies. There's also a link between water and climate itself, right? And what that link is, essentially, as Himali was explaining to us, the rising temperatures of Mother Earth over the past 100 years or so, the water body, right? The water is it has such a property that it will absorb all the heat that it gets, and it traps the heat. So it does not let it dissipate very easily. There's pros and cons of it. The negative aspect of that is that those heat in the form of currents make way to areas that were not expecting that heat to arrive, right? So just this year in India, they're predicting El Nino effect, which means that there will be less rain, which means that there will be less crop. So India is not going to export, but forget exporting, like we may not get wheat, but forget that, people in India might not have enough food for themselves, right? So that's the kind of devastation that happens no matter what. And the reverse of that is true as well, right? We may get drought and rain events in certain areas. California was still getting snow till a couple of weeks back. So all of that is the role of water in a negative way. In a positive way, it's one of the biggest sequesters of carbon that we know outside of forests, right? So tremendous amount of carbon dioxide is trapped in our oceans. And although it's trapped, it's still causing harm through acidification, through the marine life that exists within the oceans. So nature has the ability to heal itself, but there's only so much it can heal when we keep dumping waste and toxic waste into it. Water has shaped our planet for many, many generations. So not just the geologic formations of upstate Niagara, or upstate New York, I should say, but also too much of it, right? We are having storms or flooding events in places that have never, Rajasthan in India, never had, more than 2 inches of rain, are now getting flooded. And then there are, the Southwest US is experiencing drought for the longest amount of time. So how does all of this work? If we had to quickly sum it up, the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, which are the most potent global warming gases, the sources that contribute to that are electricity. So all the electricity that we use. Agriculture is a big driver of that. Industry, so all the plants, the manufacturing that we see around us. Transportation, as well as buildings, right? So not just our office buildings, but our homes included. And some of the biggest sinks are, the land sinks, or all our forest. That's why we are trying to plant 1,000 trees. We need to plant 10,000 of them. And coastal oceans and sinks, right? As well as some engineered sinks, which are not the best option, but really as an option are still viable to some extent. So you see how many negatives we have. If you are an accountant, how many negatives we have on the left-hand side. And then the sinks that are able to neutralize those negatives are less in number. So we need to, build this ability to emit less so that our sinks are not burdened with, sequestering carbon way more than what we are already polluting the atmosphere with. And if you think of, I've heard this argument that there's water everywhere. That's true. 97% of the earth is covered with water, but really 1% of that is available for us to consume. 2% of that is, in our snow-capped mountains and glaciers, and really 1% of it is available for us to consume. 50% of the population today is enduring water scarcity for at least 1 month of a year. It's prevalent in India. Anywhere you go, there's water shortage, right? So it's more than a month actually, but this is a global average. So what are biggest consumption, buckets that we know of? Humans, we think, yes, we should shower less. Absolutely agree. Everything that we need to do, we consume a fraction of the water. Industry also consumes a fraction of it. The biggest amount is agriculture, 92% of it. So what we eat, how we eat, where we procure it from, and most importantly, not letting food go to waste is one of the biggest actions we could take to avoid or to conserve water. So what can we all do? We need to reduce our food waste, right? So 1/3 of food that leaves the farm is thrown away, no matter what. Being vegetarian reduces 1/3 of our water footprint right away. Eating less water-intensive foods. So I know I'm making this list really, shorter for vegans and even vegetarian folks. Shelled nuts out of California, no. Okay, 5 of those are fine if you want to have per day. And then most importantly, we need to buy less. Anything that we look to buy, we need to make sure that it's durable in nature, in the sense that we can use it for a long time, we can repair it, right? We can keep it in the loop and not have to throw it away in a matter of months or even years. And also make sure that you know the provenance, right? What is the product that you're buying? What is it made of? Where did it come from? Make sure that you have some idea of all of that. And last but not the least, similar to our 24 gurus that we went over, I also found this profound book in Chinese philosophy around 3,000 years back that talks about the role of water, right? Which is to be humble, to be in harmony, and to be full of openness, right? And I won't read this because we don't have that much time. But if you read it, it's really powerful. I've been following this poem for the last couple of years, and it reminds me every day on a daily basis that how we should model ourselves, how we should shape our behavior towards others. Yes. So I'm happy to share this, of course, these slides with all of you, and you're happy, really suggest that you read and live this poem. I've also included some helpful resources for all of you to click on and peruse at your own time. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening.
Very powerful, Dhruv. I was taking some notes about how agriculture takes up so much more water than we think about in terms of taking shorter showers, which is what we should do. But it's, I feel, really changing our diet to become vegetarian, to become vegan, to be intelligent about that. So very powerful. Any questions from anyone? You can virtually put your hand up, and then I'll pretend to answer your question, but really I'll pass it on to Dhruv to give a more meaningful response. So he's going to stop sharing. That way we can all see each other. He's going to stop sharing virtually. If anyone has any questions, you can virtually put your hand up. These are the final 5 minutes of our workshop that we've built up for, worked hard for. Any questions? Philosophically, professionally? Okay, so Dhruv, I'm reading the first question, and if you can stop screen sharing, that would be great, Dhruv. What are some steps we can take to reduce water usage at our home? So in our home, just to give you an example, is we have a shower clock so that, we're tuned into this is how long we've been here. But Dhruv, please share away. What are some steps we can take to reduce water usage at home?
Yeah, I think showering less. If you garden, if you could collect your rainwater and use that for gardening purposes, try to go electric, not tomorrow, but over a period of, say, 10 years, set a goal for yourself. So get solar, get rainwater catchment along with it. That way you will be ready. Get electric vehicle whenever that time comes, an electric stove. So essentially, you will move away from fossil-based sources, but more importantly, you will have a closed loop of water use system for your home when you're capturing that rainwater and reutilizing it. Low flow showers. Don't, if you can have like instant, if you have to upgrade your water heater, upgrade it to a more efficient instant heating unit versus a tank that keeps heating all day long, even when you're not home. So just steps like that. Shower less. I mean, unless you have to go to the temple, you don't really need to shower in the States. Yeah, so that's some few tips that I have.
Great, thank you, Dhruv. Zui, please ask away.
Hari Om, everyone. The concern seems so like wide, depth, height, like the whole situation, trying to help create hope around that. So it's very easy to lead to inaction for my kind of a person. So
remember with the Urna Nabhi, Zui, how we can love thyself is to do your best. There is no other option. You can't make me do anything. I can't make you do anything. That is your only option. And life is great in that sense. When you have less choices, then it's easier to practice Dharma. So that would be my perspective. And Dhruv, please share.
I cannot beat that, Vivekji, so I'll leave it at that.
I'm sure you can, but fine, out of your humility, because you read that poem from the Tao Te Ching. We'll take one more question that's coming from Anubhuti. And this is very much about what you shared. Is anything being done against fracking by the government? Are we moving away from such practices? And I want to reference what Prakash shared yesterday about being a lobbyist. Lobby against this. Your voting in a democracy is so powerful. So consider that. And Dhruv?
Absolutely. Participate in the elections, even if they are at your township level. Every vote at every level matters. And don't stop advocating. So even if it is your own Chinmaya center, you need to advocate, and you need to, because that's the habit you build. Once you are advocating with your own family, you can go and advocate with strangers outside of your comfort zone.
Great. Now I know there's more questions, and I'm going to address those as we complete tonight's workshop and really our whole collaboration. Your rad from yesterday again was to pick one of the practices from our guides, from our scientists. How many of you practiced yesterday? Seeing your hands up is great. What I was practicing is Gata Vyata. I was practicing to keep moving. And by continuing to move on with conflict and relationships, you stay connected. Because if you don't keep moving on, then you overthink the relationship and that distance is developed. So what we've learned from Bhagavata is super practical. Here is your ray, your reflection adventure of the year. Last year, we had a workshop on our Shastra, on our environment. This year's workshop is on guiding nature. We will continue having such workshops where we're exploring how our maps are teaching us to be environmental activists, to live by Vasudeva Kutumbaka. We explored 16 guides. Remove 4 of them. 4 of these guides that scare you, like Supesha Crypt. Remove 4 of these and you'll come down to 12. And every month you practice that one guide, that one virtue. So as an example, in May, you can start with Prithvi. Maybe we should all start with Prithvi in May, which is the whole month we will focus on forgiving. Makes sense? So this will be your reflection adventure of the year until we meet again for such a workshop. Our final 2 announcements, firstly, in reference to United Consciousness. I've talked about our website, our conference in Germany, our conference in India, but the most productive work that United Consciousness is doing is to develop manuals. One of the manuals I'm working on is called the Integrated Manual of Humanity, and it is finding teachings from various perspectives, authoritative teachings, to help people bridge the divides to feel divine. And we're writing this in a pseudo-secular way, again, so the United Nations supports this, then this can be proliferated everywhere. So look for these manuals, the substratum for these manuals on our website. In reference to Chinmay Mission Cleveland, Niagara, we are very invested in Prithvi Seva. And so we have an entire Sangha or community. I'm encouraging all of you to be part of our Prithvi Seva Sangha. Every month we have a workshop. We have a workshop next week. And those questions that we didn't get to over this workshop, we'll get to them next week when we gather on this monthly basis. So don't forget your questions, and our team also won't. So they'll share that next week. Our Prithvi Seva Sangha, our Prithvi workshops, and all of this is building up to our Prithvi Utsava. This is going to happen on Sunday, July 16th, this grand celebration of our efforts towards our earth. Please save the date, save the time. You'll see the poster that's all over social media, and we have really esteemed guests who will be speaking and singing. This will be wonderful. So be part of this. We are all the beneficiaries of these teachings from a philosophical and professional sense. And if you're feeling grateful about all of this, then consider offering your gratitude through generosity, your dakshina through dana, not to Dhruv, not to Vivek, not to anyone on our team who has worked hard and smart to facilitate this workshop, but to planting trees. I just told you about Chinmay Mission Cleveland. Their whole graduation will be about planting trees. And if you don't have the personality type or the body type to do that, to fund the planting of trees, we have raised $14,021 against the $25,000 that we will raise by Mother's Day, our Mother's Day. So if you're feeling grateful, express this as generosity. This is shared in the chat. It's been emailed to everyone also. My appreciation to all of our seekers, to our team, to all of our scientists. This is hard work, but the most fulfilling work. I had shared that organizing such workshops is generational investments, not just for us, but for all beings forever. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhave. May all be healthy, may all be happy. Shanti, shanti, shantihi. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be joy.